Everyone says f8 is the safe choice, but safety might be what's killing your photos. There isn't one right way to take pictures, and chasing perfection through a single aperture nearly killed my creativity. I've lived at both extremes, the dreamy chaos of f1.8 and the clinical precision of f8. But somewhere in between I discovered a truth that completely reframed how I think about photography, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. When I started taking photography seriously, I wanted control. I wanted to prove to myself that I could make technically perfect images, professional, flawless. But every mistake felt like a failure. So like many photographers, I became obsessed with blur. I thought that shallow depth of field was the secret to leveling up my photos. We talked about that in a previous video, but long story short, the f1.8 eventually taught me that blur was limiting my compositions. Then, like a pendulum, I drifted to the opposite extreme. I stopped down. f5.6 and f8 became my comfort zone, safe, predictable, reliable. Every shot looked consistent, every frame perfectly balanced. The stories were told through contextual layers. It was hard work to learn how to compose those complex scenes, but it was incredibly rewarding. I remember zooming into my photos, feeling proud of the crisp details, the precision, the sense that I had finally figured it out. But that confidence slowly turned into a trap. Focusing on one aspect of photography can help you master it. But photography is a polygon full of edges and angles. When you fixate on one, you miss the rest. It felt good in the beginning until it started suffocating me. My photos were getting sharper, but my vision was getting smaller. I knew I was missing something. The spontaneity, the magic, the practicality of f1.8. And that's when it clicked. There is no single perfect aperture. There isn't one to love and one to hate. There is only the right aperture for the right moment. And today I want to focus on those moments, the ones that need the f1.8 to truly shine. At first, shooting at f8 felt like real progress. Everything was sharp, clean, and controlled. The mistakes were gone, and I finally felt confident in my technique. But after a while, that control started to flatten things. Every photo looked correct, but some of them just wouldn't stand out. They looked uninteresting. This made me realize how much the f1.8 could have added to them. Shooting wide open isn't just about the background blur, it's about guiding attention. When you open up the aperture, you can pull the viewer straight into someone's eyes or isolate a gesture in a busy street. It turns distraction into simplicity. Wide apertures also change how the light behaves in a photo. They bring back texture, adding softness, glow, and atmosphere that f8 usually hides. Street lights turn into orbs, reflections bloom, shadows gain depth. Scenes that could have felt flat, they stand out again. And then there is the practical side. f1.8 keeps you shooting when light disappears. Dusk interiors, night streets, places where f8 would push the ISO through the roof or force you to drop your shutter speed too low. I once heard about a photographer who always shoots at f8 or f11 to keep his photos consistent. This is a brilliant idea and a great discipline, but for most photographers, it's limiting. f1.8 gives you flexibility. It keeps you creating even when the light fades. The more I stayed locked at f8, the more I realized that safety had a cost. My photos were consistent but predictable, sharp but often flat. I wasn't using aperture as a tool anymore. I was using it as a rule. If this video is already making you rethink how you shoot, hit the like button and subscribe with the bell. It really helps the channel. When I opened up my aperture again, everything changed. After months of shooting top down, f1.8 felt like breaking a rule, but in the best way. At first it was uncomfortable. I had gotten used to seeing everything in focus, and at f1.8 I had to trust my instincts again. The margin for error is small. A slight movement can throw you out of focus, but that challenge always makes me sharper. With f1.8 I shoot faster, reacting instead of overthinking, and that brings back the excitement of being present in the moment. You see someone with a nice hat across the street. Quick, focus! That's what I love about it. It keeps you alert, engaged, and alive. Shooting wide open also changes how you see your scenes. While tighter apertures give you control and structure, making layering part of the process, wider apertures make you work for those layers. You build them through soft backgrounds, sharp subjects, and subtle elements in the foreground. It's all about your distance from the subject and the focal length you're using. A 35 or a 50mm can still hold a lot of context even when shooting at f1.8. If you keep a mid-distance from your subject, the result is depth that looks natural, visible, and cleaner. Longer focal lengths won't make layering as easy, especially when you're shooting wide open. The compression, the blur at f1.8 can make any background melt, but there are creative ways to build depth differently, from the bottom up, using shadows, colors, and shape to separate your foreground, mid, and background. And that's what I have been missing with f8. F1.8 isn't about shooting wide open all the time. It's about having that option when a photo needs depth, energy, or intimacy in a single moment. It simplifies chaos, it brings life into flat light, and it keeps you shooting even when the light fades. Coming back to f1.8 after dedicating myself to f8 reminded me that the artistic side of photography often hides in abstraction, in the things that are implied, not perfectly seen. After moving between f1.8 and f8, I realized that Aperture isn't just a technical setting, it's a language. Each value communicates something different. f8 speaks in structure and balance. It's the language of clarity, geometry, and order. It's perfect when you want to capture how multiple elements interact. A city street where people, architecture, and light all share the same stage. It's like an orchestra playing in unison. But f1.8 speaks differently. It's more intimate, emotional. It draws attention inward, isolating a subject, a gesture, or a fleeting moment in the chaos. It's what you reach for when you want the viewer to feel closeness rather than distance. It's the solo in the concert, a violin that breaks the silence of the room with slow notes floating through the air. Once you understand that, Aperture becomes a creative decision, not a habit. You start to ask, what does this scene need to say? If the story is about connection, a portrait, a gesture, a moment of stillness, then opening up makes sense. If it's about environment, the way a person fits into a space, the rhythm of light and lines, then stopping down gives you that relationship between elements. The magic is in knowing when to shift. Some of my favorite images now come from that balance, using f1.8 to separate and f8 to connect. It's not about one being better than the other. It's about letting each one do what it does best. The tighter apertures help you build words. The wider apertures help you focus on emotion within them. Together they form the language of how we see and feel through the camera. What I've learned from this is simple. There is no perfect aperture, only the one that fits the story you are trying to tell. f8 gives you structure and control, f1.8 gives you energy and emotion. Both matter and both can elevate your photography when used intentionally. So don't get stuck chasing the one setting that feels comfortable. Experiment, switch back and forth. Let your aperture become part of how you express your story, not just how you expose it. Have you ever caught yourself relying too much on one way of shooting? And if so, what helped you break out of it? I would love to hear your stories down in the comments. If you haven't watched it yet, watch the companion video of how obsessing with f1.8 almost ruined my photography, as this is the other side of the story. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, the new hype button, subscribe with the bell, or even become a member to support the work behind these films. That was all for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will see you on the streets. Bye bye.